My girlfriend told me I wasn't a priority before leaving on a trip with her guy friends. So I vanished. When she came crawling back, she was already planning her next one. 3 weeks ago, this thing happened and I'm still getting bombarded with messages from her and her friends telling me to talk to her and fix things. But honestly, I think I handled things perfectly. I don't get why everyone's acting like I'm the villain. My girlfriend, Sarah, and I have been together for a bit over 2 years, and we're both 26. Until this mess happened, I thought we were rock solid. We live about 40 minutes apart, which isn't the best, but we manage. Sarah has this tight-knit college friend group that I've always been cool with because everyone needs their buddies, right? But now I'm seeing there were signs I should have noticed sooner. Her friends include 3 girls and 3 guys, all of whom went to the same state school and have been close since freshman year. The guys are Marcus, Tyler, and Joshua. Marcus has always rubbed me the wrong way, but I kept quiet because I'm not trying to control who Sarah hangs out with. He's one of those guys who thinks he's funnier than he is, always making comments that are borderline inappropriate. You know the type? Like, he'll compliment Sarah on how she looks in an outfit but adds it's just a friend's opinion. Or he'll joke about how lucky I am to have her, implying I don't deserve her. Tyler and Josh are pretty chill. Tyler's been with Emma for years, and Josh is single, but he doesn't stir up drama. Marcus, though, has been single for over 1.5 years, and since then, he's been getting weirder with boundaries, not just with Sarah, but with all the girls in the group. The real trouble started about 6 months ago when they planned a big spring break trip to Florida. They've always done group trips, and at first, Sarah asked if I wanted to join. I was down because I love traveling and thought it'd be a good chance to bond with her friends. But then, 2 weeks later, Sarah said maybe it'd be better if it was just the original group since they'd already made plans assuming it would be them. I was miffed, but I get it, sometimes friend groups need their own time. So, I said no problem, have fun, and started planning a trip with my own friends for the same week, though that never happened, ha. But things started feeling off with how absorbed Sarah was in planning this trip. We're talking hours on group chats every single day, from the moment she woke up till she went to bed, always talking about the trip, even when we were supposed to be having quality time together. It felt like I was competing with this vacation for her attention, which isn't a great feeling. But I didn't want to complain about her being excited with her friends. I figured things would go back to normal after the trip. Then, a month before the trip, Sarah mentioned Marcus suggested the group make matching t-shirts with an inside joke and their names on the back, like a sports team. It was super cringe, but whatever. But the temporary tattoos idea? That was pushing it. Then, Sarah practically moved in with me a week before the trip for more packing space, yet spent most of her time engrossed in group chats. I felt like a ghost in my own home. That's when I realized this wasn't just about trip excitement, she was prioritizing the trip and everyone involved over me and our relationship. Still, I stayed quiet, hoping things would settle down post-trip. The night before they left, Sarah was packing last minute, phone on speaker, and the gang was chatting about their outfits. Marcus made comments about looking forward to seeing the girls dressed up, specifically told Sarah to bring a certain black dress, and she giggled, saying it was already packed. And I was there thinking, why is Marcus so familiar with my girlfriend's wardrobe? The next morning, Sarah woke up super early to glam up. She spent ages in the bathroom, video chatting with the girls about their outfits and makeup while I made us breakfast. Marcus joined the call, complimenting everyone's looks, and Sarah flirted back in that playful way people do. I was getting really irritated hearing all this but tried to keep it together. I made breakfast, hoping for a nice morning before she left, but Sarah was too busy to join me promptly. So, we're all set to hit up this big night out, and Marcus keeps going on about how he's psyched to be Sarah's wingman if any guys hit on her at the bar. Sarah jokes back that she can handle herself, but appreciates him having her back. They're all laughing, and that's when I start thinking things are getting a bit much. I go over to the bathroom and knock, telling Sarah her breakfast is getting cold and asking if she could hurry up a bit so we can hang out before she takes off. She pops her head out, saying she's almost done but needs to coordinate outfits for photos. I mention I made her favorite breakfast and was hoping we could eat and chat since she's leaving for a week. She looks at me like I'm being extra and says, "Babe, I'm trying to get ready. We can talk when I get back." So I head to the kitchen, staring at this nice breakfast I made just sitting there, getting cold. I realize we haven't had a real chat in ages because she's been so wrapped up in trip planning. I hear her still chatting with Marcus and the crew about their plans and it hits me, I feel like a stranger in my own relationship. That's when I decide we need to talk about what matters and how we're doing. Once she comes out looking stunning, I tell her she looks amazing and ask if we can sit and talk over breakfast. She checks her phone, saying the group's hitting the road soon so she needs to finish packing. I tell her I get she's stoked about the trip, but I feel we haven't really connected in weeks. She's grabbing stuff for her suitcase, saying, "What do you mean we haven't connected? We've been hanging out every day." I explain that, sure, we've been around each other, but she's glued to her phone with group chats, and I feel like the trip is taking over her focus from us. I make it clear I'm not trying to kill her vibe or guilt trip her, I just want us to matter, too. She finally stops packing and looks at me like I'm being crazy, saying, "Of course, our relationship is a priority, but this trip is happening now and I have to be ready. We'll talk when I get back." I point out that's exactly the problem, she's acting like she can just pause our relationship when something else pops up. She gets defensive, saying I'm being dramatic. So I ask point blank what her top priority is right now, and she instantly says it's making sure she's ready for the trip. I ask how our relationship ranks, and she hesitates before saying it's important but not going anywhere. The trip is a one-time deal. And that's when it hits me hard. She just told me our relationship isn't on her priority list, like she thinks it'll always be there no matter what. I stand there, processing what she said. It's not just about this one chat or one trip, it's about how she sees our whole relationship. Like I'm the fallback, always there while she chases bigger, fun stuff. So, I tell her, okay, if that's how you see things, I get it. She doesn't even notice I'm upset, just says, "Good, glad you understand," and goes back to packing. I sit down at the table with the now cold breakfast and think about how I've felt like I'm competing with her friends for attention for months now, watching her put this trip over us, and now hearing her say directly that we're not her priority. I realize I'm done with being treated as optional. Not done with the relationship, but done with being the guy who's always waiting around. So I decide right then, if I'm not her priority, she won't be mine either. If she can pause us for something else, I can pause too. I get up, pack a bag, and head out. She's still busy packing and chatting when I tell her I'm going to visit my brother in Denver. She looks confused, asking why now, right as she's leaving for her trip. I say it seems like a good time since she's got her priorities. She asks if I'm upset, and I keep it cool, saying I've got it all figured out, making my own choices based on that. She's trying to read me, but I keep it chill. Then her phone rings, it's Marcus about their meeting spot. She tells him she's on her way and turns to me saying she has to go. I tell her to enjoy the trip and hope she gets everything she's after. She gives a quick kiss, says she'll call when they reach Florida, and takes off. Once she's gone, I call my brother Jake, who I haven't talked to in a couple of months, but we're tight. I know I can crash with him and clear my head. Jake picks up, and I say I need a change of scenery for a bit, asking if I can come by. He picks up on something being up, knowing I don't usually bounce like this. He doesn't grill me, just says, "Sure, drive safe." I throw my bag in the car and head for Denver, figuring things out during the 6-hour drive. As I think it over, I realize Sarah meant what she said about her priorities, it wasn't just heat of the moment. She was being real about where I stand. I started thinking about all the times lately when I felt like I was always coming in second to other things in her life. By the time I got to Jake's place around 4 p.m., he took one look at me and knew something big was up. He didn't push me to spill right away. Instead, he just handed me a beer and told me I could share whenever I felt like it. That night, we ordered pizza, watched some basketball, and I finally told him everything. Jake just listened without cutting in. When I finished, he asked, "So, what are you gonna do?" I told him I honestly had no idea. I just knew I needed some space to figure things out. Meanwhile, Sarah's trip was kicking off, and I saw on social media that they'd hit Florida and were already posting beach pics. Honestly, they looked like they were having a blast, which was cool for them. That first night, she texted me around 11 p.m. saying they got there safely and that the hotel was awesome. I texted back saying that was good and I was glad they made it okay. She asked how my day was, and I told her it was fine since I was in Denver visiting Jake. She then asked why I didn't give her a heads up about the trip, and I said it was just a last-minute decision. She didn't reply after that, and I figured she was probably out at bars with her crew. The next morning, I woke up to a text from her with a bunch of photos from their first day, shots of them at the beach, restaurants, and stuff. I looked at them all and just replied, "Looks fun," and that was it. This went on for the next few days. She'd send photos and updates, and I'd reply briefly but politely. I could tell she was noticing I wasn't as engaged, 'cause her messages started getting longer and more detailed, like she was trying to get me more involved. Meanwhile, I was loving my time in Denver with Jake. We went hiking, hit up some breweries, and caught up on everything. It was exactly what I needed and realized I felt more relaxed and happy than I had in months. Jake and I talked about the whole Sarah thing a few more times, and his perspective really helped. He mentioned that it sounded like Sarah was getting too comfortable taking me for granted, and some space might make her realize that. He also said that if someone shows you're not a priority, you should believe them and adjust accordingly. On the fourth day of Sarah's trip, she called instead of texting. I was out hiking with Jake, so I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail saying she missed me and was worried since I seemed a bit different in my texts. She wanted a real convo and asked me to call her back. I didn't call her back that day because I just wasn't ready for a big chat. That night, she called again, and this time I picked up. She jumped right in, asking if I was mad at her about something. I told her I wasn't mad, just giving her space. She got quiet for a sec and then asked what I meant. So, I reminded her about when she left and said our relationship wasn't her priority. I mentioned I respected that and was just adjusting my expectations. She started to say I was taking it wrong, but then I heard Marcus in the background saying something about dinner, and she said she had to go, but we'd talk more later. The call lasted maybe 5 minutes. The next day, I decided to extend my stay in Denver. I was supposed to drive back, but I was having a blast with Jake and realized there was no need to rush. Sarah's trip wasn't over till Sunday, and I was enjoying having this time to figure out what I wanted from a relationship. So, I called my boss and asked if I could work remotely for a few more days. Luckily, he was cool with it since I usually don't take time off, and most of my job can be done anywhere with an internet connection. That's when Sarah noticed something was seriously up. She texted asking when I was heading home, and I told her I decided to stay in Denver a bit longer since I was having a great time. She called me immediately, asking why I was extending my trip without discussing it with her. I said I was just doing what she did, making decisions based on my priorities. She said that was totally different because she planned her trip way in advance, and I just randomly left town. So, I asked what made it different, and she didn't have a solid answer. She just kept saying it was different and I was being weird and distant. I told her I wasn't being weird, just honest about where I stood and adjusting accordingly. The conversation got a little heated because she insisted I misunderstood what she meant about our relationship not being her priority. She said she just meant at that specific moment, she had to focus on her trip. But I reminded her she'd been prioritizing that trip for months, not just that one day. She got defensive and said I was being unfair and she had every right to be excited about a trip with friends. I told her she could be as excited and prioritize whatever she wanted, but she couldn't expect me to just hang around waiting for her to have time for me when everything else was done. That's when she said something that really hit home. She said, "I don't get why this is such a big deal. You know I love you and our relationship is solid, so why can't you just support me having fun with my friends?" And that's when I realized she just didn't get it. In her mind, because she loved me and thought our relationship was solid, she could treat it as less important than everything else because it would always be there. She thought our relationship was so secure it didn't need attention. I told her love wasn't enough if it wasn't backed up by actions and choices. I said telling someone they're not your priority and then expecting them to be cool with it just because you love them isn't how healthy relationships work. She got quiet and said she needed to think about what I was saying. I told her that was fine and she should take all the time she needed, and I was going to keep enjoying my time in Denver. The rest of her trip was kind of off. She kept texting now and then, but the vibe was different. It was like she was testing to see how I'd respond. She'd send photos, and I'd reply politely, but I wasn't engaging like before. I wasn't asking follow-up questions or commenting on how fun things looked. I was treating her updates like they were from any old acquaintance. Meanwhile, I was having an awesome time in Denver. Jake and I went to a Rockies game, checked out some museums, and hit this killer restaurant in the mountains. I posted some photos on social media and so, right after I put up those posts, I noticed that Sarah was checking them out. Then, on her last day on the road, she gave me a ring. She told me she'd been mulling over our chat and wanted to discuss it when she got back. I said sure, no prob, but mentioned I was still chilling in Denver and wouldn't be home when she returned. She asked when I'd be back, and I was like, not sure, maybe in a few days. She sounded pretty eager to see me and have a face-to-face convo. I told her I got it, but I was all about finishing my Denver experience first. That's when her voice got a bit anxious. She wondered if I was planning to call it quits with her, and I said I wasn't making any big plans, just taking it day by day and focusing on my own stuff. She picked up on that priorities bit and went quiet. Then she admitted she understood she'd hurt my feelings and wanted to fix things. I told her it wasn't really about feelings being hurt, but rather about how we approach relationships differently. She asked what I meant by that, and I explained she seemed to see our relationship as something stable that could take a backseat whenever something more thrilling came along, while I thought it needed ongoing attention to thrive. She was surprised and said she'd never seen it that way and asked if we could chat more when she got home. I told her we could talk anytime, but I was going to continue doing my thing until I felt ready for that convo. Sarah got back on Sunday, saw her social media updates saying she was back safe and sound. She texted me that night, asking when I'd be up for a chat. I told her I was still in Denver and would let her know when I was ready. By Monday morning, she was calling nonstop. I picked up one call, and she was in tears, saying she couldn't stop thinking about our conversation and realized she'd taken me for granted. She wanted to patch things up and wanted to know when I'd be back. I appreciated her reflection but told her I needed more time. She asked how long, and I said however long it took. That's when she really started to panic. She couldn't get why I was dragging my feet and just wouldn't come home to sort things out. I pointed out I was doing what she did. She argued it wasn't the same, but couldn't really explain why. I stayed in Denver for a couple more days, and during that time, Sarah kept blowing up my phone. She was sending these long messages saying how sorry she was and realized she'd been wrong about putting the trip over us. Meanwhile, her social media showed her out with Marcus, Tyler, and Joshua, still in vacation mode even back home. So while she was texting about missing me and wanting to fix things, she was still hanging out with the same crew that she'd prioritized for months. It just reinforced what I'd been thinking about her approach to relationships. When I got back home on Wednesday, I didn't tell Sarah. Just slipped back into my normal routine. She texted that evening, wanting to talk, and I said I was home. She showed up in 40 minutes, looking like she hadn't slept much. She jumped into apologies, saying she finally understood she was in the wrong and wanted to change. I listened but told her it was more about actions than words. Over the past week, I felt what it was like to be someone's true priority, my own. And I realized I'd been settling for less. She wanted specifics, and I told her about Jake, how he dropped everything, was truly present, and made me feel valued just by giving me his attention. That's what I wanted in a relationship. Sarah said she got it and wanted to be that person for me. I told her I hoped that was true, but I needed to see it over time, not just when she feared losing me. We talked for hours, and she kept asking how she could make it right. I said it's not about one thing, she needs to align her actions with her priorities. She said our relationship was number one, and I said that was cool to hear, but the real test was how she'd act moving forward. Fast forward 3 weeks, and honestly, not much has changed. Sarah's trying hard to spend time with me and be attentive, but it feels forced, like she's on her best behavior just to keep me around. She's still hanging with Marcus, Tyler, and Josh a lot. Just last week, they hit up a concert, and Sarah spent all day texting their group about plans. It felt like déjà vu. When I brought it up, she insisted it was just one concert, not the same as the trip. But I could see that same energy in planning with them, always on her phone. So, I suggested a break, not a breakup, but to stop pretending things were working. She was upset, saying she tried hard and it wasn't fair for me to give up. I said I wasn't giving up, just being real about our differences. She thinks relationships wait until she's ready, I think they need steady attention. She claimed she could change and understood my needs better. But during our convo, a text from Marcus popped up, and she responded immediately. When I pointed out she proved my point, she said it was just a quick text, no big deal. That's when I realized nothing was actually changing. She might be more aware, but her instincts are the same, prioritizing the urgent and exciting, expecting our relationship to always be there. So, I decided it was time to officially break up. So, she started crying and begging me to give it another shot, promising she'd do whatever it takes. But I had to tell her, the issue wasn't about her willingness to do things, it was that she didn't really get what needed to be done in the first place. Since then, she's been bombarding me with texts, calls, and even showing up at my place uninvited. Her friends have jumped in too, saying I'm being too harsh and that she really loves me, just messed up a bit. But here's the kicker. While she's supposedly trying to patch things up, she's still all caught up in her group chat with Marcus and the gang. I saw on social media they're planning another trip next month, and she's all over those chats. She's acting like our relationships are top priority, but she's already back to planning trips with the same crew that was more important before. It's like she didn't learn anything from our talk. I'm ignoring her messages now because I've said my piece. I made it clear what the issue was, gave her a chance to fix it, and she showed no interest or capacity to change. Some folks say I handled this poorly and should have communicated better from the start instead of taking off to Denver. But I think I was pretty clear. I told her exactly how I felt and what I needed, and she told me exactly where I stood. Everything that happened after was just what was bound to happen after that talk. I don't think I'm wrong for refusing to be someone's fallback option. I don't think I'm wrong for wanting someone who consistently prioritizes our relationship, not just when they're afraid of losing it. And I don't think I'm wrong for believing what people show me about who they are and what's important to them. So am I the jerk for bailing when my girlfriend made it clear I wasn't her priority and then breaking up when nothing changed? Update: well, Sarah found out about this post. No clue how, but maybe one of her friends connected the dots. She called me yesterday morning, absolutely furious, demanding to know why I aired our business online and made her look bad to strangers. I told her I didn't use real names and just wanted outside opinions. She said it didn't matter because people who know us would recognize it was her. She accused me of trying to make her look like a bad girlfriend. It's funny how she was more upset about the post than the actual issues in our relationship. She spent 20 minutes yelling about how embarrassed she was that people were calling her names, but didn't touch on the real problems. Then she said something that confirmed I made the right call ending things. She was like, "I can't believe you're letting strangers on the internet convince you to throw away 2 years." I told her it wasn't the strangers, it was her words and actions. If she cared more about how she looked online than how she treated me, that proved my point. She hung up, but then texted a few hours later wanting to meet in person without an audience. I told her I didn't see anything left to discuss and was moving on. Things got weird when she showed up at my apartment around 8 p.m. with a bottle of wine and takeout from my favorite spot, saying she wanted to cook for me and have a nice evening like old times. I appreciated the gesture but wasn't cool with her showing up uninvited after we'd broken up. She started crying, saying she missed me and could fix things if I just gave her another chance. Here's the kicker: while she was crying, her phone kept buzzing with notifications. Her group chat with Marcus and the others was blowing up, and she kept glancing at her phone. Even during her big emotional plea, she couldn't ignore her group chat. After about 10 minutes, she actually said, "Sorry, I should probably check this. It might be important." I just laughed because it was so typical of her. She was trying to convince me I was her priority while prioritizing her phone and friends over our conversation. I told her she should go and that the whole interaction just reinforced my decision to end things. She got mad, saying I was being unfair and looking for reasons to stay broken up. I said I didn't need to look, she was giving me new ones in real time. She finally left around 9 p.m., but not before telling me I'd regret giving up on someone who loved me as much as she did. I told her if this was her version of love, we had different definitions. Since then, she's been texting me screenshots of comments from people defending her on the post like that's supposed to change my mind. She sent one saying, "Everyone deserves to have fun with their friends," and added, "See, not everyone thinks I'm terrible." I'm not responding to these messages because she's missing the point. Nobody said she was terrible for wanting fun with friends. The issue was her consistently prioritizing everything else over our relationship and then getting upset when I stopped accepting that. And here's the most telling part: I found out from Tyler's girlfriend, Emma, that Sarah's been telling people a different version of the story. According to Emma, Sarah's saying I got jealous of her trip, gave an ultimatum, and when she wouldn't cancel, I broke up with her out of spite. That's not even close to the truth, but it proves Sarah still doesn't get or won't admit what she really did wrong. Emma mentioned during the Florida trip, Sarah kept checking her phone and seemed distracted, worried about something back home. Sarah knew I was upset and there were issues but chose to ignore them, hoping they'd vanish. Then when I stopped accepting being sidelined, she acted like it was out of the blue. I'm done with this whole thing. Sarah can spin whatever story makes her feel better, but I know what really happened and I'm comfortable with my choice. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real-life stories happening around you.